and welcome to week 10 of my Beachcombing Blanket crochet along. I'm Eleonora, the designer behind Coastal Crochet, and all the details about this blanket can be found over on my blog. The links are in the description below. So in week 10 we're going to be doing the final rows for the top and bottom panels of our blanket, and it's these rows here, row 17 all the way through to row 27. And these rows are inspired by sand and driftwood and sea glass and shells, so lots of beachcombing inspiration. The tutorials for week 10 are going to be in smaller segments. So the first tutorial will cover these rows, the second tutorial will be for the orange driftwood inspired row, the third tutorial will be for the shells, and the fourth tutorial will be for these final rows at the top. So do go to the tutorial for the rows that you need help with. Remember to have the written pattern next to you as we go through the tutorials, and also remember that I use UK crochet terminology, although I do try to translate to US as we go along. So at the end of week 9, at the end of row 16, we would have joined with yarn A at the end of the final stitch. So this is where we should be now at the start of week 10 and the start of row 17. So we turn the work, we're ready to start this row. We're going to be going across these puff stitch waves and straightening out this top edge. So obviously at the moment we've got these beautiful waves and we need to straighten out that top edge. So looking at the pattern, it tells us to make 4 chain, and this counts as the first double treble, US treble of this next row, row 17. And so then it's 1 double treble, US treble, in each of the next 3 stitches. So wrap your yarn around the hook twice. Obviously this counts as the first stitch, so the first one we're going to be going into is the next one along, and it's 1 double treble, US treble, in each of the next 3 stitches. It's 1, that's 2, and that's 3. And now looking at the pattern, it tells us to do 1 half treble in each of the next 3 stitches. So wrap your yarn around the hook, insert your hook into the stitch, yarn over, pull through to the front, and the half treble, the US half double crochet, is now where you pull the yarn through all the loops on the hook. So 3 of those, that's 1, that's 2, and that's 3. And now looking at the pattern, it tells us to do 1 double crochet, US single crochet, in each of the next 3 stitches. So now we're at the top of these puff stitch waves, so we've got our shorter stitches going across here. So that's 1, that's 2, and that's 3. Then 1 half treble in each of the next 3 stitches, 1, 2, and 3. So you can see here how we're straightening out that top curve. And now looking at the pattern, it's 1 double treble, US treble, in each of the next 8 stitches. So we're going to be doing these taller stitches across this dip here. So 1 double treble, US treble, in each of the next 8 stitches. That's 1, that's 2, 7, and 8. So you can see we've gone across the dip in the waves with these taller stitches. And now looking at the pattern, it tells us to repeat from star 9 times. So go back to where the star is, and these were our first 3 half treble, US half double crochet, and repeat everything we've done from that star, from that point, repeat all that 9 times. So 1 half treble, US half double crochet in each of the next 3 stitches now. And when you've repeated that 9 times, you'll have gone all the way across these puff stitch waves, straightening that edge, and you'll be left with these stitches at the end. So looking at the pattern, it's now 1 half treble, US half double crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. It's 1, 2 and 3, 1 double crochet, US single crochet in each of the next 3 stitches, 2, 3, and 1 half treble, US half double crochet in each of the next 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, and then there should be 4 stitches left, and it's 1 double treble, US treble in each of the next 4 stitches, which are the final 4 stitches of this row. So that's 1, that's 2, that's 3, and the final stitch here is number 4. And so there we go. At the end of row 17, we've gone all the way across those puff stitch waves and we've straightened them out. And there should be 187 stitches in total going all the way across. So now we turn the work to move on to row 18. And so row 18 is a simple row of double crochet US single crochet stitches. So looking at the pattern, it tells us to make 1 chain. But this doesn't count as a stitch. This 1 chain doesn't count as a stitch, so the first stitch to crochet into is the very first one of the row. And as the pattern says, it's 1 double crochet, US single crochet in the first stitch, and then each stitch to the end. So a simple row of double crochet, US single crochet stitches all the way across. And here I am nearly at the end of the row, and remember that the last stitch to crochet into will be the top of the 4 chain that we made at the start of row 17. That 4 chain counted as the first stitch, and so now we have to crochet into the top of that 4 chain as our final stitch of row 18. So there's the end of the row, and now we turn the work. And so row 19 is another row of simple double crochet, US single crochet stitches, except we are going to be incorporating some bobbles along the row. So looking at the pattern, it starts off with 1 chain, which does not count as a stitch, and then the pattern tells us to do 1 double crochet, US single crochet in the first stitch, so the very first stitch of the row, that's 1, and then in each of the next 7 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So we've done 1 double crochet, US single crochet in the first stitch and each of the next 7. And now it's 1 bobble with yarn F in the next stitch, and we're going to make these bobbles in exactly the same way that we did in our squares at the start of the blanket crochet along. We had the bobbles in the sea glass square, and we had the bobbles in the fishing buoys and nets square. So you can go to where the abbreviations are in the pattern, and all the following is completed in the same stitch. So with the contrasting colour yarn, yarn over hook, insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over hook, and then pull the yarn through to the front. Yarn over hook and pull through these 2 loops. And then it's repeat from star 4 times. So go back to where the star is in the abbreviations for bobble, yarn over hook, insert the hook into the stitch, yarn over hook, pull up a loop, yarn over hook, and pull through 2 loops. So we've repeated it once, yarn over hook, insert hook into stitch, yarn over hook, pull up a loop, yarn over hook, pull through 2 loops, repeated it 2 times, yarn over hook, insert hook into stitch, yarn over hook, pull up a loop, yarn over hook, pull through 2 loops. We've repeated it 3 times. One more time, yarn over hook, insert your hook into the stitch, yarn over hook, pull up a loop, yarn over hook, pull through 2 loops. And when we've repeated from star 4 times, you should now have 5 contrasting coloured loops and then 1 main colour loop on the hook. So let the contrasting colour go and then grab your main colour yarn, and it's yarn over hook and pull through all the loops on the hook, and that is the first bobble. Give it a little tug there, make that tighter, and then when you crochet the first stitch going forward, you do this first one quite tightly to really secure that bobble. And remember that we're going to be crocheting around the contrasting coloured yarn all the way to the end of the row, so just encasing that contrasting coloured yarn behind the row. So I'll show you how to do that. So looking at the pattern, we've just made this bobble, and if you look at the pattern, it now says to do 1 double crochet, US single crochet in each of the next 16 stitches. So there's the first one. Try and do this one quite tight to really secure that bobble, and you can push the bobble to the front and just give it a little tug. And now we're going to be going around. Make sure you're encasing that yarn around the stitches that you're doing, like so. So that's 2 double crochet, US single crochet. We're doing 16, so this is number 3, 4, 5, 15 and 16. And if you look behind, you can see the yarn there behind, but give it a little pull. So pull that green to really straighten it so there's no bits sort of protruding out. And there you can see we've got our first bobble, and then 16 double crochet US single crochet stitches. And looking at the pattern, that work was in brackets, and everything in the brackets we're going to be doing 10 times in total. So now back to the beginning of the brackets, it's 1 bobble in yarn F in the next stitch. So let the main colour go behind, grab the contrasting colour yarn, and then everything for the bobble we do in the next stitch. So yarn over hook, insert your hook into the stitch, yarn over hook, pull yarn through to the front, yarn over hook and pull through 2, and then repeat that 4 times more. Yarn over hook, insert into stitch, yarn over hook, pull through to the front, yarn over hook, pull through 2, yarn over hook, insert your hook into the stitch, yarn over hook, pull through to the front, yarn over hook, pull through 2. You need to do that twice more. So that's once, last time, last repeat, and then you should have 5 contrasting colour loops on the hook and 1 main colour. Just let go of the contrasting colour, grab your main colour yarn, yarn over hook and pull through all the loops on the hook. Give it a little tug to tighten that bobble, and then it's 1 double crochet, US single crochet in each of the next 16 stitches. Remembering to do this one quite tight and encasing that contrasting coloured yarn around the stitches as we go. So just keep that there. That's 2, 3, 15 and 16. Remembering to pull that green yarn, give that a pull to really, not too tight, you don't want to sort of pucker the work, but just tight enough so that the yarn is really smooth and neat behind the work. And there you can see now we have 2 bobbles with the 16 double crochet US single crochet stitches in between. And so everything in those brackets we're repeating 10 times in total. So now we're back to making a bobble, and then we're doing the 16 stitches. So repeat everything we've done in the brackets 10 times in total. And when you've repeated that 10 times in total, you'll have 10 bobbles going all the way across the row with these 16 stitches in between each bobble, and you'll be at this point here with still a few stitches to go. And so now looking at the pattern, there's one more bobble to do because it's one bobble with yarn F into the next stitch. So one more bobble to do, just like all the others. There we go. And then when you've done that bobble, there should be 8 stitches left. So looking at the pattern, it is now 1 double crochet, US single crochet in each of the next 8 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. So that will bring us to the end of the row. 1 double crochet, US single crochet in each of the next 8 stitches. And there we are at the end of row 19, and there should be 11 of these bobbles going all the way across. And now we turn the work, ready for row 20. And row 20 is a row of simple half treble US half double crochet stitches. So looking at the pattern, we make 2 chain at the beginning of this row, and this time that does count as a stitch, and because that turning chain counts as a stitch, this very first stitch is accounted for. And so looking at the pattern, it's 1 half treble or US half double crochet in the next stitch. The first stitch is accounted for with that turning chain, so 1 half treble US half double crochet in the next stitch, and then each stitch to the end of the row. And just pay attention that when you get to those bobbles that you are crocheting into the top of that bobble, because that does count as a stitch. I'll show you when I get to the bobble. So there's the first stitch just before the bobble, and then this one here, a little bit tight to get into sometimes, but that little V going across the top of the bobble, that is a stitch that we need to be crocheting into. So insert your hook into there, and that counts as a stitch. And then continue with 1 half treble US half double crochet in each stitch to the end. And so here I am at the end of row 20, just a few more stitches to do. And then here is the final stitch, and at the end of the final stitch it tells us to join with yarn G, and that is ready to move on to row 21. So yarn G for me is the orange one, so end the stitch by pulling that one through. And there we are at the end of row 20. And so this is what it looks like at the end of row 20. We've got these lovely rows to resemble the sand, and the green bobbles to resemble those pieces of sea glass. So we're ready to move on to row 21, and I'll show you how to do that in the next tutorial. Hope you found this one useful. Thanks for watching.